And in the end of the day, this just points back to good personal finance, which is what we're going to talk about right now. So why is debt important to your personal finance? Maybe Aaron, you would like to start on this a little?
Okay, I think I've said this before in some of my previous podcasts with the ringgit to dollar. Just shout out to them. And that is, if you were to look at a balance sheet, right? Let's say you look at your personal finance balance sheet. There, you have first your income statement. Then after your income statement, you go on to the next one. And that you see a balance sheet. And in balance sheet, it's usually divided into two. All right, assets and liabilities. Okay, the thing is, in terms of wealth building, most people in the personal finance space and most people who do, introduction to finance, they always like to talk about assets. I buy assets, I fund these assets, etc., which is 50% of the equation. The thing is, liabilities, which is pretty much debt, right, constitutes 50% of the other side of the equation. And that is how do you, manage the other side of the equation. So I've said this before and I will reiterate. If you don't understand and don't how to master debt and credit in your life, you are literally giving up 50% of the efficiency, right, in your own wealth building. And that is something which, I find that as what Steph has mentioned, right, if you're very excessively avoiding the usage of debt and credit in your life, then generally what I've noticed is you simply will not be as efficient as you could be if you know how to use it. Because I was in that particular category where I try to avoid that my entire life, and then once I started to understand and wrap my head around it, right, I have realized that if you know how to use that to your advantage, it actually creates a lot of opportunities and it allows you to actually make decisions, right, which actually benefits you a lot better, right, if you avoid it. It opens up doors, I would say. It increases, it gives you a lot of like tools which you would not have otherwise had if you don't use it, right? A very good example I can give is, for example, okay, if you have like, let's say you have cash 100% to buy a house today, okay, you have like, let's say 100% cash to buy a house today. The question, right, you want to ask is, do you want to use 100% of your house today, bearing in mind, let's say you are 35, right, to buy 100% cash and buy a house today, or would you want to borrow money and buy and keep the cash and use the cash to invest somewhere else?
Yeah, I
You
would
get what I
definitely
mean?
go for the latter option.
Okay,
Yeah.
so for some people, right, they will want to do 100%, but let's talk about the why you would want to, let's say, do the second option. If you go to the second option, right, generally you basically come to understanding if you are in your mid 30s and you have the ability to actually pay 100% down for a house. The question is, why do you really need to do that? Because end of the day, in terms of the utility of the home, right, in terms of utility, it really all it does, right, it just gives you a shelter above your head, correct? And if you think about it, there is no real need for you at the age of 35, when you are still working, right, to pay 100%, right, of your house off immediately. Because generally, if you are well insured, you have insurance, right? You have life insurance, you have like hospitalization insurance. Even if you are unable to work due to an illness or sickness, right, you can actually de-risk that through you having an insurance policy. Then they will give you cash and then you can pay off the house, right? And then if you go 100%, then you are locking up your options in this asset, and then you're unable to use the other money, for other opportunities. So, I mean, it comes down to like your personal finance, right? And then why is it important? I would say it's important to understand because if you are able to understand how to utilize that, it gives you a lot of options apart from just making very binary decisions where you just like, okay, I'm just not going to borrow any money. I'm just going to like create assets, which is not too wrong, but I would say that it's quite inefficient. It is quite inefficient. If for it, and my experience looking at personal balance sheet, right, I would say that people who understand that and can utilize that better, right, I can tell you, they don't move faster by 10 or 20%. They move faster by triple and 3 and 4 times the speed than people who don't use that.
Yeah, that's really like the notion that I got when I read this book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. I think that everyone begins their personal finance journey with this book, but the fact that he started with like the chart of like an asset and like debt, it was quite in a sense it's like a mindset shift for me to actually learn how to utilize debt and actually embrace debt as like part of my personal finance. In that sense, I used to be very apprehensive about using credit cards or even like taking loans because my experience with loans was quite painful, which I will go into a bit later.
Oh,
But and I think I mentioned this in a previous podcast, but it was looking back at it, right, it was just really bad personal finance decisions where I took up a loan where the monthly installment is more it's like a little bit too much for the salary that I was earning back then. And I wasn't actually effectively able to live life, and I had to live like a very frugal life. I had to eat or not eat some days, you know. So it was quite difficult, and I became like quite apprehensive of that at that point in time. But when I started um to take charge of my personal finances and like started to learn about that, it's actually something that like you mentioned, it's like super dynamic. It's not a binary thing, you know. You could take debt to fund something, and does that the thing that you actually fund is productive in the sense that it's an asset that creates value, or is it something that, you know, devalues like a car, right? So Stephanie, how what do you think about like the interaction between like debt and like personal finances?
Personally, I feel that it's a tool that people can make use of to get their to get an asset for themselves. And yeah, because where else can you get buy a house? I mean, it is not that I know of that I can get a 90% loan to buy equities, to buy stock or crypto, right? So I
Yeah.
feel that, yeah, I feel that that's the best choice I have now, lah, at least at this level. If I mean, for a person, average person like me, where I'm not rich, I have nothing else as collateral.
I mean, even if we don't talk about property, right? We talk about just vehicles, cars, and motorcycles in general. In Singapore, I think you can do without a car because your public transport is so advanced. But in Malaysia, if you don't have a car, you're basically you know, stuck. You can't go anywhere outside of your home, basically. And I think like purchases for like a car, while it's like it's an unproductive asset, it devalues, but you know, it's something that Malaysians do appreciate because we drive a lot. We drive 40 kilometers across KL just to get to work sometimes, you know, and it's something that's really needed. And for people like me, average people like me, you know, I feel like this is like a quite a big purchase, depending on like what kind of car you're buying. But like you have to fork out at least a good 40, 50,000 ringgit just to buy a car, and in cash if you're buying it in cash. But like, where on earth do you find this kind of money in a 27-year-old's pocket? I mean, sure, you know, some people, high flyers, they earn that much, but um, the majority of people, like, we can't just poof, there you go, 50K. And that's where the loans come in, you know. It enables people to own things that are really expensive, right, Stephanie?
Yes, and actually, like just now, I was digging out, for some statistic, like why people got into bankruptcy, but I actually saw that one of the top two reason is actually because of higher change, which is the car lah. So and personally, from my experience dealing with buyers, especially those that are having some difficulties to get loan, right? I mean mortgage, is because of higher purchase commitment. So actually, it's a yes and no for me. Because just now I was digging up data about like the latest insolvency statistic for Malaysians, like what are the top few reasons. Actually, the higher purchase for car is second highest contributing factor lah, of insolvency lah. So I feel that personally, from my experience of dealing with, most of them are because of over high commitment on the car repayment every month. So I feel that if possible, especially for young people starting out, you need a car. If you have the choice, go for a cheaper car so that you don't overcommit yourself, or like reduce your ability to get loan in the future.
I love
Yeah.
that.
You know,
I love
that
that.
really hits home, you know, because for me, I was like a 25-year-old, 24-year-old when I actually bought like a brand new car. Wasn't
Baller.
cash, so I had to take a loan, you know. And I wanted to buy a secondhand Myvi, which was like 30, 40K, and then wasn't too expensive, you know. But my dad somehow insisted that I just got like a new car, like a new Honda City. So I drive a Honda City full spec somehow. And
Oh,
it was like 70,000. I was, wow, my God. That point of time, I used 33% of my, one third of my salary to service the debt every month. At that point of time, my salary was still kind of low at that point, but it was hell, man, every day.
wow, that's
And
heavy.
looking back, I just regret it so much. But like I'm grateful that I kind of like pulled through. Look, and I do enjoy driving the car. So there's like, could you say like it's really not worth it? I don't know, you know. But the only thing I know is that at that point in time, I was this close to giving up on the debt and selling the car because it was just too much and too painful for me to actually pay off the monthly installments. And
You see.
it goes back to whether debt is like friend or foe, you know. And it really has something to do with good personal finance management. You have to actually know how much you're going to pay and how much of that you actually need to actually sustain your daily life, and maybe set a bit of money aside for savings and investments, like that kind of stuff, you know. And I'm quite surprised, Stephanie, you said the top two reasons why people go bankrupt is because of higher purchase loans.
Yes, the first one being personal loan, and then the second one is
Well, Aaron, I think we just ticked off the top two reasons why people go bankrupt in Malaysia today. If for viewers that don't know, I have a higher purchase loan, and Aaron took up like a personal loan, which we'll dive deeper into later.
Do
But
you want
yeah,
me to chime in on the what you guys have mentioned just now?
yeah, of course, go for it, man.
Okay, I want to basically just summarize, right, for the listeners out there. Essentially, when you take that, right, and then you hear stories of Ryan and you hear stories from Steph, right. End of the day, right, you have to go back to the question. When you take out that, what are you buying? What are you using the money for? Agree? Because essentially, if you are using this debt, right, to buy an item that can return you usually two things. It usually needs to give you back, right? Number one, more time, right? If you, let's say, run a business, all right, you want to move your business faster and accelerate the speed of your business growth. You take on that, then you hire people, and this person can generate more revenue for you and higher return than whatever that interest is. That interest that you're paying, then it might be a wise decision to do so because it get you time. So usually, right, when you buy that, right, and sometimes when you, let's say, for example, you do, you're working, then let's say you're running a business, then your laptop is like dying already. It's like pretty much like need CPR. It's really like dying, right? I say you can use your debt, right, and then buy a brand new PC, and this PC gives you no problems. It runs 10 times faster, and you work faster. So in a way, right, you're using that now to give you more time, today, rather than the alternative, right? You save for the next 2 years just to be able to buy this PC, then you go from there. Agree?
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
end of the day, you are buying something, right, to get something today, now, okay? Because based on the amount that you're borrowing, right, you can just move faster. So in a way, right, when you borrow money to buy something that gets you faster, you are buying time, right? You're getting time today, and then how you utilize that time from then on will determine whether or not is it a good purchase or not. Right. The second thing is that when you are buying something, right, you also need to come to the perspective of whether or not you're getting your money's worth for the amount that you're borrowing. Like what Steph say, higher purchase and personal loans, right? I would say that most of the time, I I can tell you that sometimes I do get Instagram followers asking me whether or not it makes sense to borrow money to buy Rolex watches.
What? For
Okay,
real?
okay. Yeah, I do get, messages like this asking me whether or not is it a wise decision. Okay, look, borrowing money, right, to buy things like that, especially when there's not much utility, right, it really boils back down to whether or not you need it. I've been pretty much, my go-to watch has been a G-Shock. Okay, I've used it for like 10 years and it never breaks, it never dies. And, as much as I like watches, right, end of the day, I don't really foresee borrowing money to buy stuff like that. The return me more money and more time as compared to if I buy assets. So now I flip the equation now, Ryan. Instead of using the money to buy a car, which is 70,000 ringgit, right? If you had borrowed that money, and let's say what's your interest rate? Your interest rate is about how many percent? 5-6%?
2.4.
Okay, your interest rate on the car loan is 2.4%. What if you use that money, right, at 2.4% at a payback of 10 years and they allow you to buy Tesla?
You mean a Tesla car or a Tesla
Tesla
stock?
stock.
See, that's a huge difference. But yeah, you know,
And
if Tesla stock's gonna go 10x and my interest rate is gonna be 2.5 or 2.4 for the next foreseeable future, like how many years? 5 years? You know,
yeah.
it's really no-brainer, you know.
Yeah, so I mean that comes down to the perspective of what Stephanie was trying to say, right? Because like in many cases, right, when you take on debt to buy, right, and she says that there's no other asset that allows you to borrow 90%, right? It's because in many ways, right, banks are not stupid, all right? They will only lend you money, let's say, and usually allow you to borrow 90, 95, and in some cases, 100%, right, of the asset that you're wanting to buy is because they know that there is collateral value, so they allow you to borrow, you know. And I think you have to understand that when you take on debt, right, you really have to answer the fundamental question, which is, what are you buying? Okay, if you're buying things, you know, that really doesn't increase your efficiency at work, doesn't increase your time, you know, doesn't increase your speed at doing things, right, then that is debt, right, which is what I call like you know, fun play money debt lah. And I don't really think that, you know, you should see it as something which that will have a net, you know, positive value for you, because end of the day, you know, look guys, you have to pay it off lah. End of the day, you have to pay off that, because you know, the way, the rule that works is that, you know, end of the day, you know, that thing is not really yours until you pay it off. You still otang people end of the day. So if you can make it work for you, the formula is, if you borrow money, right, just make sure that whatever you're borrowing the money to buy it for, it can work for you, and then you can pay off the debt. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I would say if you want to go for like a home or car, you know, or anything that really you want to take a debt on, make sure that the utility actually serves you well. Like for cars, right? The only utility is to bring you from point A to point B comfortably. And as long as the car serves that satisfy the utility, which is going from point A to point B, then you know, you don't need to break your bank just to go buy like a brand new Tesla Model 3 or a BMW, Mercedes, you know. Yeah, a nice little Proton would do. So, you know, it all ties back down to like good personal finance and understanding what you are using your debt for. All right.